Before we get into the episode, I have an amazing gift for you that is going to create so much growth in your business. I just recorded an episode where I shared how I grew my business by 657% in 1 year. I shared the exact principles I used. There are 5 of them. As if that's not enough, I created a worksheet for you where you can just go through certain exercises so you can implement those 5 principles in your business in the next 24 hours. We're talking about wins you're going to create in your business in the next 24 hours because of an episode of the EntreMD podcast you listen to. So go to entremd.com/worksheet to get your worksheet and head over to listen to episode 479 of the EntreMD podcast. It's going to completely rock your world. And there's nothing better than doing it other than doing it with a few friends. So share this with a few physician colleagues. You guys do it together and share with me the wins you created in your business in 24 hours. And now for the episode. Being aware of the 7, picking one, and mastering that one over the next 6 months or the next year is going to translate to significant revenue in your business. And if you have a business that's already established, could be millions. Like with an S, could be millions. Hi, docs. Welcome to the EntreMD podcast, where it's all about helping amazing physicians just like you embrace entrepreneurship so you can have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on your terms. I'm your host, Dr. Una. Your medical education was fantastic. And your medical education actually puts you in a position where you can create millions of dollars, right? Think about it. When I started my first job as a pediatrician, my salary was $120,000. And if I did that for 10 years, I would have ended up with 1.2 million. Okay. So, great education. But if you are going to be a physician entrepreneur who is going to run a 7, multiple 7, or even 8-figure business, there are different skills that you're going to have to learn. All the things you did to become a physician, they're not going to get you to where you need to be. Now, don't get me wrong. Being a physician already puts you in a position where you have learned a lot of traits that will help you thrive as an entrepreneur. Things like your capacity to learn, things like your capacity for delayed gratification, and on and on and on. But to thrive as a 7 and multi-7-figure entrepreneur, you're going to need new skills. And so what I want to do is I want to walk you through 7 skills I had to learn to be a person who can have multiple businesses doing over 7 figures in revenue. And you're going to decide which ones you're going to start working on. And it's going to change everything for you. Okay. Skill number 1. Okay. And I think this is one of the earlier ones that I had to lean into. And that's the skill of speaking. Okay. Now, I've told you my story many times. When I started off as a super shy, socially awkward, introverted introvert. So speaking is not a thing that I was really going to willingly go and learn. But what I found is business is all speaking. You're speaking to grow an audience. You're speaking to get new patients and new clients. You're speaking to your team. You're speaking to referral sources. You're speaking to vendors. You're speaking with collaborators. You're speaking, right? And being able to master the art of speaking is one of the things that will transform your life as an entrepreneur, probably the most, right? And so, when I started off, I was terrified of being on stage. I didn't think I had enough content to talk about. I didn't think people would want to hear what I had to say. So I understand all of that. But I will tell you that this is one skill that has changed everything for me, right? Because by speaking, I have spoken on so many stages. At this point, probably hundreds of stages, which has made a huge difference in my business. Case in point, we had a doctor who has now been in the EntreMD Business School for 5 years. And where did she first hear about me? I was speaking at a conference. She found out about me, then found out about my podcast, and then binged on my podcast. In fact, she's one of the people who told me, I'm done. I'm like, well, done with what? I've listened to every podcast episode you've ever done. I'm like, every? And probably at this point we had 100, somewhere around there. But it's a lot of podcast episodes. And we've been working together ever since. Where did that come from? That came from speaking at an event, right? And so it has created so many opportunities for me. That's how, I speak on stage. I have, my goodness, over 480 episodes of the EntreMD podcast. I have multiple YouTube channels. One of the YouTube channels I have is called The Profitable Practice. the private practice channel. You can go check it out. And I talk about all things private practice. And again, these are all things that have had direct impacts. Okay. And so you may say, I'm shy, I'm social awkward, I don't know how to speak on stage, I don't know what to say, all of those things, but it's a skill, you can learn it. And the thing important to remember about the things I'm talking about is that these skills, they're like the skill of putting IVs, the skill of doing spinal taps, the skill of replacing hearts, the skill of running a code. You didn't know them and you learned them. And you learned them because in order to be a doctor, you need to know them. And so in order to be a great entrepreneur, you need to know these. Okay. So speaking is one, super, super, super huge. And so that's the reason why, and which is with every one of these skills in EntreMD Business School, one of the things we really, really focus on is helping people build these skills. And so almost everybody in EntreMD Business School is a speaker. They have a podcast, they have a YouTube channel, they've spoken on stages, they've done all these things. They've spoken on my stage because that's what we do. Entrepreneurs are speakers. So that's number one. Number two is very close to number one, but it's probably a little more nerve-wracking, and that is the skill of selling. Now, if you hear that and you cringed, I get it, because that was my response as well. Okay, when I think about selling, I thought about a used car salesman. I thought about pressure tactics. I thought about manipulating people so you force them to buy what they don't want to buy anyway, and all of those things. But the truth of the matter is this. When you think about cringeworthy selling tactics, chances are they are bad selling. Okay. So selling is selling, and there's good selling and bad selling. Okay. So chances are is bad selling, right? Trying to manipulate you to get what you don't want. Now you might say, yes, Dr. Una, yes, that was cringeworthy and that was bad selling, but not always. Sometimes what it is you think about it, you just don't want to do it, right? You just don't want to do it. But I talk a lot about ethical selling, right? Ethical selling. And what is that? That is, you are literally leading somebody who has a problem to a solution. That's what you're doing. Okay. So for instance, in my companies, I have a private practice, and in that private practice, I take care of kids. And so there will be a parent who is about to have a baby, and they're looking for a doctor who can partner with them for the care of their baby, right? If I come to that person and say, hey, my name is Dr. Una, I'm with Ivy League Pediatrics. We'd love to partner with you to take care of your kid. I'm not trying to make them do something they don't want to do. I am introducing them to a solution they're already looking for, right? The solution to a problem they already have. In the EntreMD Business School, it's the same thing. There are people who are physicians, maybe they're already running businesses, but oh my goodness, they're not able to attract the number of clients or patients that they want, right? Then they're so afraid of showing up, so they're not building a brand. And so because of that, technically, they're the world's best kept secret. They don't understand how to create money. So there are cash flow problems in the business, and they know there's a cash flow problem, but they don't know how to strategically respond to it. So they're just not making enough money, or their top line looks really good, but they're not making profit. So they're not able to pay themselves. And they realize, I need a team. The more people I hire, the more frustrated I get because it's more people to manage and it's more work for me, and my profit margin is even shrinking. And so somebody like that, I know that we can take you from that to a person who is confident in their role as an entrepreneur, understands how to attract all the patients or clients that they want, understand how to create money. Like literally, we had a doc say this. She's like, yeah, and if I need to let go of that job, that's not a problem. I know how to create revenue, right? So know how to create revenue and know how to build a profitable team. And so the more team members they have, the more impacts they have, and all of that stuff, right? I know I can do that. So when I talk to a physician who's running a business who's feeling that pain, and I'm telling them about the EntreMD Business School, I'm not trying to make them do something they don't want to do. I'm not manipulating them or anything. I'm leading them to a solution to the problem they know they have and they want to solve, right? And so I had to learn how to sell, the skill of selling without feeling sleazy. Okay, that is a whole skill. Okay, and so whether it's the EntreMD Business School, whether it's the Profitable Private Practice Movement, which if you're a private practice doctor, you should just pause this and go check it out immediately. EntreMD.com/movement. Want to see you in the room? Okay, whether it's any of those things, I had to get comfortable. Maybe it's an event, get comfortable. My books, get comfortable selling all of those things. Okay, so the skill of speaking has made me millions. The skill of selling has made me millions. And if you're going to be a person who's going to run a business, right, whether it's a private practice or a coach or a speaker or whatever, this is a skill that is you have to acquire. This is a requirement. Okay. Funny story here. In high school, there are classes I liked, there are classes I didn't care for, but you know the role. You just do all of them and you do them really well. And funny enough, of the sciences that I did, so physics, chemistry, all of that, the one I liked the least was biology. I liked math. I liked advanced math more than I liked biology. But this is the thing. I could not find a pathway to medical school without biology. And so whether I liked it or not, totally besides the point. Whether I was, it didn't matter. The only thing is the pathway to there is through here. For entrepreneurship, the pathway to a business that is thriving is selling, is speaking. Okay, so these skills are skills you must acquire. They make everything easier. Okay, skill number 3. Skill number 3 is one of my favorite skills, and I think I'm a master at it, is the skill of imperfect action. Okay, so as physicians, what we do is we wait and we make sure we have all the steps. Think about like your PALS or ACLS. You have the full pathway. Before you even start running the code, you have the full pathway. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. If this doesn't happen, do this. Like we have all of that stuff. And so a lot of times we come into entrepreneurship and we want to have the same experience. We want to know these are all the steps and this is how it will play out. And these are all the things that are guaranteed before we even start. We want to know everything before we start. Entrepreneurship is like the opposite of medicine when it comes to that. Okay, so if you're going to do brain surgery, if you're going to deliver a baby, like please know all of these things, okay? But as an entrepreneur, the truth of the matter is you get clarity as you take action. You're able to take better actions as you take action. The next step becomes more clear when you take action. There's no pathway. And so if you wait for perfection, nothing happens. I always like to use the story of the iPhone. And because Apple is a $1 trillion company. Okay, so let's take something out of the playbook for a $1 trillion company. Apple has never and will never make an attempt to make you a perfect phone. They're never going to do it. Their goal is to make you a better phone. That's their goal. We're going to make you a better phone, and next year we're going to give you a better phone, and next year we're going to give you a better phone. They have no intention of making you a perfect phone. And so in the same way, we can decide, I'm not going to wait till I can have a perfect podcast episode to give you an episode. I'm not going to wait till I'm perfect at selling to start selling. I'm not going to wait to have the perfect speech before I start speaking on stages. I'm not going to wait till I have the perfect clinic or the perfect coaching program before I begin to coach. I am going to give you the absolute best I can give you at this moment in time, and then I'm going to give you something better. And so everything I've started as an entrepreneur, I have started imperfectly. This podcast you're listening to, literally, I had people do a challenge. I wanted them to do a challenge. I'm very big on challenges because it helps with implementation. And I wanted them to go pitch podcasts. This is literally how this podcast started. I was like, it's the podcast challenge because I know being a guest on other people's platforms, what it would do for your platform. The only problem was I hadn't done that. I had maybe done it once or twice. I hadn't really done that. And so I don't teach people to do what I'm not doing. I think that's hypocrisy, right? And so I said, okay, before I let them do this challenge, let me go apply to be a guest on a number of podcasts, get on those podcasts, all those things, and then come let them know the impact that it had, and then let them do the challenge. I applied for a number of podcasts to be a guest, and to my delight, many of them said yes. So I think I had done the first 2 or 3. And I got on the podcast like, this is actually really interesting because I didn't listen to podcasts prior to that. I didn't really know a whole lot about podcasts prior to that. And I said, this is very interesting. This is a cool concept. And so then I came back to my Facebook group, the EntreMD Facebook group. And if you're not there, come join us. Okay. So just look for EntreMD on Facebook. I said, hey guys, how do you like to consume content? Now, to be very clear, I didn't think at the time, I knew that most of the people would say YouTube, right? And I used to create YouTube videos at the time. And so I said, how do you guys like to consume content? Podcast, YouTube, blog, okay? And I just put it because as far as I was concerned, I knew they were going to say YouTube. And it was like 99 or 97% of the people who were then like, podcast. Initially I was like, what? The nerve of you guys. I've been making all these videos all this time, and your thing is podcast? What in the world? That was the way I thought about it. And so then I said, okay, well, let me look into podcasts. And so I started Googling, how do you start a podcast? I found an article by Buzzsprout. And so I got that article and it talked about the microphone and that you needed to use and all of these things. In less than 2 weeks after I discovered this, I started my own podcast. And I didn't have the fancy mic. I used the earphones that come with the iPhone. I used that as my mic and my headphones. I recorded it on my phone, sent it to my brother. I'm like, here you go, edit it. Okay. Am I telling you to do that now? No. Okay. I've done so many things on how you can create a podcast and all that. I took one for the team. You don't have to do that, but that was the best I could come up with at the time. And so if I waited, this podcast wouldn't exist. Now, this podcast, we're getting towards 500 episodes. We are almost at 750,000 downloads. It's been listened to in so many countries. It has changed the trajectory of the lives of so many physicians. And all of this, I could have just not had it if I didn't start messy, right? And that's the same thing for the EntreMD Business School. We started that messy. That was the same thing for my practice. We started that messy. And I don't mean sloppy. I don't mean with a lack of excellence. We do the absolute best we can at the time. But the fact that we cannot do it perfectly or how the more established people are doing it doesn't mean that we don't start. Okay. So I really want to challenge you on this one, embracing imperfect action. It's a little challenging for physicians, but we can do it. Okay. Okay. The fourth skill is the skill of growing an audience. Okay. The skill of growing an audience, because this is the deal. If people don't know you, they can't know, like, and trust you. If they don't know, like, and trust you, they can't work with you. Okay. So I'm going to use EntreMD as an example. What does that mean, growing an audience? Well, for me, it meant building this podcast, right? So I build this podcast. I have this community of physicians who come listen every week and they're growing, they're growing with it. They're transforming their businesses. They're doing all of that. And he's growing an email list, right? And so I would send out emails every single week. And I'm like, sharing my thoughts, sharing my idea, challenging people to do different things. Email that went out today at the time of this recording, was all about, you don't necessarily need more time. You need more implementation, right? Because we don't have all the time in the world to just stay the same. And I gave some resources, some books and things to look at so you can start transforming your business, right? And so I have people who are subscribed to the email list. I have people who are subscribed to the podcast. I have people who follow me on social media, and I'm showing up and I'm delivering value. And this is the thing. My commitment is for everyone who comes to, listen to my podcast or watch me on YouTube or my social media or email, that just by the content, which is free content, you're going to be in a position where you can create wilder wins in your result, even than some of the things you paid for, right? They'll help you create results even better than those things. I don't come to do fluff. I don't come to just tickle your fancy. I don't come to kind of, bait and switch you. I come to support my audience. I cannot tell you how many people have come and said, my business survived in the pandemic because of you. I wouldn't have started my practice without you. In fact, I had a doc who, based on the podcast, started her practice and all of those things. And she's like, oh my goodness, I did this from just the podcast. And now she's in the EntreMD Business School. She's in her second year now, right? And so that skill of building an audience, and the main thing there is serving them, is the attitude, is the disposition of serving them. I want to help them be better. Some of them are going to come work with you. Some of them won't. But for me, I am trying to change the narrative of the entire physician community. Some people are going to work with me, some are not, right? But I want to serve everyone to the best of my ability, right? Okay. So the skill of building growing an audience, right? Why does this matter? If people don't know, like, and trust you, you can't really sell to them. Do you see what I'm saying? And so I'm growing this base of people who know me, who are like, I get results from what I do with Dr. Una and all of these things. And they're like, oh my goodness, let me come into school, let me come into PPPM, let me buy her books, let me come to her event, and all of those things, right? And the bigger the audience is like the top of a funnel. The bigger the base of clients we can have. And with those clients, I can help them get the biggest results, right? Okay. So the skill of growing an audience. Okay. Now, the next skill is the skill of engineering transformation. This is one of the fun things. I identify as an engineer, okay? Engineering transformation. I'll tell you what I mean by that. In my private practice, the way this looked is, part of it is the clinical care, but the clinical care is kind of standard. what I was engineering was the experience. So my private practice has been around for 15 years. Okay. So the narrative that I was used to hearing was, it's a medical practice. When you come in, you wait. So that's what it is. And it's cold and all of those kind of things. And I was like, wow, what if I could have something that was warm and friendly and the service was provided on time? Right. I started experimenting with that. And we built this thing that I call the assembly line. We talk about it a lot in the EntreMD Business School. And we built the assembly line. And I know it sounds very cold and, like very systematic. But what it is how can we build a system where people can come in, they come in, they're checked in and all of that stuff, and they leave. And that turnaround time is less than an hour, but it was a warm, meaningful experience. And the way you do that is by removing waste, right? It's identifying every spot along the way. And then asking yourself, like, does this need to be here? Does it need to be like this? Is this redundancy? Is this waste? Can this be automated? Can this be done at a different time? And all of that stuff. And so we spent time engineering that experience. Why is that important? Because when people are cared for in a certain way, or when people get a certain kind of result, then they come back and come back and come back and come back. That's just the way that works. And so then you have this sustainable business, because there are businesses where they're only focused on bringing people in. And because they're bringing people in and they're not looking at retaining people, at the end of the year, they have the same number of clients, even though they attracted 200 new clients. Right. And so this is something that we really focus on. In the EntreMD Business School, what that looks like is I'm building a container. Like, the EntreMD Business School is a container of transformation. That's what it is, right? So when I bring people into this container, how can I help them get results bigger, better, faster? How can I do that? Then you start building the components. So there's no component in the school that's just there because, ooh, this is a nice thing to have. So every Wednesday, for instance, we have these live sessions with me, right? At the time of this recording, today, I'm going to show them how to build a profitable 7-figure team, how to build out job roles, KPIs, and training systems that scale, right? So they can have these teams that help them to have more impact, more financial freedom, more time freedom, right? And so in building out that session, I'm like, okay, how do I help them understand this in such a way they can go back to their offices the next day and start implementing these things so it creates results? I understand, like, what a high-performing team can do for your business is just absolutely ridiculous, like ridiculous in the best way possible, right? And so I engineer those Wednesday sessions. Last Wednesday, I showed them how to become the rock star team leader that their team deserves, because your team will rise or fall to the level of your leadership, like at the end of the day. So how do I become that team leader who leads rock stars? You see what I'm saying? So this is engineering. And then I'm like, okay, so we have that. What else do I need? I knew they would need a community, because in the beginning of the EntreMD Business School, people really fought for one-on-one. And there's nothing wrong with one-on-one, but I knew in order to do what I'm trying to do, the people need to be quarantined almost in an environment of physician entrepreneurs who were bought into that ideology, because the common ideology is, private practice doesn't work. Physician coaches can't replace their income with the revenue from their businesses. And, burnout is the order of the day, and loss of autonomy is the order of the day. And you're a physician, you can never take 4 weeks off. And 7-figure business is almost like a cuss word. I was like, if they come every Wednesday and they go back to where these philosophies predominate, I'm not going to be able to win with them. And so we built the community. What is that? It's engineering transformation. And we built challenges so they stay in momentum. That is engineering transformation. So it's a whole engineering project, the EntreMD Business School, but is that skill of creating something that helps people experience a transformation and change. So if you're a private practice owner, then you may be looking at the kind of results you get for your patients, right? And then they're getting the results and they feel like they're heard and all of those kind of things. And for me, my job is to help doctors build profitable, 7 and multiple 7-figure businesses, and building this container that makes that possible, right? Okay, so that's number 5. Number 6 is the skill of delegation. Okay, I struggled so much with this one. And I struggled with this one because, I was a perfectionist, and if it'll be, it's up to me, and I'm the one who can do it right. And truthfully, I couldn't see and you have enough good models of what it would look like to really delegate, right? And so I didn't do it for the longest, but I'll tell you this though, building that skill of delegating as the CEO of my home and the CEO of my businesses, it has made it possible for me to sit in my zone of genius. Okay. You can probably guess what my zone of genius is. My zone of genius is three things. One of them is what I just talked about, which is engineering, right? Building engineering coaching systems that can give people radical results. That's a zone of genius for me. Zone of genius for me, number two, is creating transformational content. So not content. I'm not a content creator. I'm an entrepreneur who happens to use content, but nobody's going to come listen to the EntreMD podcast and their life will be the same. Nobody's going to come go to my YouTube channel for private practice owners and watch that and remain the same. Nobody's going to read my books and remain the same. Like it's not going to happen. And then the third thing is collaboration, right? Either whether with team or, with my Dream 100 and stuff like that. But what delegation has done is made me possible to do the things that only I can do and that I'm really good at anyway. And because of that, we continue to grow. Because of that, we continue to get wild results. Because of that, we continue to support physicians. So that's through EntreMD. And then we have a system that helps patients, parents and their kids. And that continues to go on. But it's because of delegation. If I didn't master that, there's no way. That's a skill. Like literally today, I want you to think, what are three things I can get off my plate, get them off your plate? Start practicing, right? Start practicing delegation. And skill number 7 is a very important skill. It's very sneaky, but it's very important. And that skill is the skill of mind mastery. Mind mastery. You can have the best strategy. You can have the best support. You can have the best raw material, right? So really good business is doing well and all of that stuff. But if you haven't figured out how to work your mind, especially in the times that we live in, your thoughts will paralyze you. Your thoughts will make your strategy useless, right? And so I hear people say things like, oh, I don't want all that mindset stuff. And I understand what many of them are saying. They're saying, oh, I've heard all that mindset stuff. I just want the strategy. But they're Siamese twins. They literally cannot be separated. They can't be separated. In fact, there is so important that in the EntreMD Business School, when we have our sessions, every month we have a mindset mastery session. We call it the Champions Mindset. Every single month, no matter what we're talking about. And the reason for that is if we don't master this, we can't move forward. We can't move forward. So all the habits you have to develop. And some of them are very simple things like being aware of what you're thinking, being aware of the things that trigger paralysis for you, practicing gratitude, right? Like all of these things, being able to see your limiting beliefs, being able to cultivate new beliefs. Sometimes it gets this thing of, oh, that's woo-woo or whatever. I'm telling you. I mean, I don't even know that I have to tell you that much because this is like preaching to the choir. You're a physician entrepreneur listening to this. And so what that means is you've had times where you knew exactly what to do, but there's one thought. You're not good enough. One thought. Other people are the people who should do this. You're not the kind of person who should be doing this. One thought. Who's fooling who? Like, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a doctor, right? One thought. Like, why would an 18 player come work with me, right? Like, if you have that thought, you wouldn't even put out your job ad. Talk less of hiring anybody, right? Like, it wouldn't even happen, right? So the skill of mastering my mind, that's skill number 7. And it's a must have. Now, someone may say, oh, I don't have any of these skills. When am I ever going to get there? But here's the thing, though. There's no arrival with any one of these skills. Guess the 7 skills I'm still working on, these 7 skills, right? So it's about mastery of the basics, right? These are the basic skills that are required for entrepreneurs. You're not going to outgrow them. People tell me, I got that. I'm like, God, what? What did you get? I talk to people running $500 million businesses and they're still trying to figure it out. They're still growing in their mastery. What did you get? What are you talking about? Okay, so I don't want you to feel, I talk about all those things. Not true. You're somewhere, you're at a level, and our job is just to keep getting better and better and better. But you understand that my job is to gain mastery of this stuff, right? So what I want you to do, because you hear these 7 things, you're like, oh my goodness, this is so much. Where do I start from? This is what I want you to do. I want you to pick one. I want you to pick one that you're like, wow, with where my business is right now, this is the one that has the capacity to give me the biggest growth, that have the biggest impact, right? Then pick that one. And I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, one, I need all seven. And yes, but I want you to pick what your master skill is. Like, if I could devote the next 6 months, the next year to building a skill, which one would it be? Because this is the thing. When you do one, you become better. Like, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. You're progressively getting better at all the other skills, but the ripple effect of getting really good at one of these would change your life, like any of them. If you're here and your business is under $1 million, especially under 500,000, you still have drama around selling, I would just pick selling and just go for it, right? But in the process of selling, you're going to have to get better at imperfect action. You're going to have to get better at speaking. You're going to have to get better, much better at mindset mastery. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so you're not necessarily losing out, but if you don't have the focus, you're just going to get marginally better in all of them instead of getting massively better in one and much better in all the others. You see what I'm saying? Like, so you do want to pick one. For me, my master skill for 2025 is persuasive speaking. And so someone will say, are you kidding? Like, people tell me you're a natural speaker and all that. Well, first of all, I'm not a natural speaker. I've done a lot of speaking. But in my role, that is the thing that will have the biggest impact in my entire business. And again, to become a master of that, I have to get better at all the other stuff, right? And so I want you to pick the next one you're going to focus on. And this is the skill that I'm going to work on, right? And let me show you why this is so important. Just imagine with me for a second that in that one skill, so pick a skill. If you haven't picked it, pause this right now, okay? And then come right back. But pick a skill. In that skill, if you became, over the next 3 years, if you became 10 times better at doing it, think of what it would do to your business. Maybe you pick sales, right? And you become 10 times better. What would that mean in literal dollars for your business? Pick delegation and you become 10 times better. What would that mean for the revenue you can generate through your team, the peace and quiet you can have, the time you can have, the white space you can have, so you can even have higher quality ideas and all of that? Think about it. Picking one of these skills, being aware of the seven, picking one and mastering that one over the next 6 months or the next year is going to translate to significant revenue in your business. And if you have a business that's already established, could be millions, like with an S, could be millions. Okay. So I want you to really take this assignment seriously. I want you to share this episode with another doctor in your life. I want you guys to hold yourselves accountable. Like, oh my goodness, I'm going to go all in on this skill. If you need support with it, of course, the EntreMD Business School is there. And, you can just go ahead, turn an application. The team will talk with you. EntreMD.com/business. It's not a binding contract. It's just an application. I'm going to talk with you to see if this is the best next step for you. But guys, I want you to go do this, because this is the stuff that takes a physician and turns a physician into a really savvy physician CEO, physician entrepreneur. I am rooting for you. Never believe the lie that you can. You can become exactly who you need for the best version of your business to show up. And I'm rooting for you. Okay? All right. See you on the next episode.